Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very, very special episode of the Black Tower Podcast, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Daniel.
I am Josh.
And I am Andrew.
And today we are going to be talking about one of our most anticipated topics since the beginning of the Black Tower podcast, and that is going to be life at the Black Tower. We're going to be doing a lot of fun little character-y stuff, though we're going to try and keep it tasteful rather than dopey. But before we actually get to the episode itself, given that this is talking about life in something that didn't exist in the very first book, Andrew, would you like to go ahead and give us some protection?
Andrew?
He's muted.
Maybe his taint is strong with him.
Oh my god, Zencaster. The space button on my keyboard is very sensitive. So like I look at it and it activates. And apparently that is also the keyboard shortcut for mute in Zencaster.
Makes sense.
So what I said in response, he was, yeah, I can give it a shot. It's been a while, but I might still remember how to do it.
Hey, just roll it on there.
You just do it. Just slather it out. Ain't no thing.
Why did that make me think of like paint on condom?
That sounds horrible.
You remember the episode of Futurama where we had like the spray on bikini and stuff? And the spray on shoes? Just like one of those, like, did you bring it? Yeah, sure. Let me shake up this aerosol can. Good to go.
Daniel did say to give the listeners some protection, so
I did.
You're not entirely off base there, buddy.
Yeah. But I don't think there's an aerosol version, so don't try that. And I wouldn't try like spray latex or anything either. It sounds like a bad idea.
I would not recommend covering your soft bits in aerosol anything.
Definitely not flex tape either.
No,
that's a lot of damage.
No. Okay, the taint is strong with you guys today.
Sorry, I take it back. The flex tape is what you put on after you put your dick in crazy because she's going to destroy it. Sorry, or he. We are absolutely non-discriminatory here at the Black Tower.
Hey, Andrew.
Oh, yeah. I was supposed to be doing a thing, wasn't I? All right. So, this episode will contain spoilers through Book 6, Lord of Chaos of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time series. For those of you that may be struggling, what is Book 6? Besides just the name Lord of Chaos, the book concludes with Dumas Wells. And we'll leave it at that to avoid spoiling in the spoiler warning because that would be an asshole move. But if you haven't read through that, yeah, it could be. I mean, not for the people being spoiled.
Truth.
So if you have not read through the events of Dumas Wells, meaning that you would have read through all of Lord of Chaos, we do recommend that you stop here and come back later when your ability to channel has manifested enough for testing purposes.
Indeed.
Speaking of that.
So, as stated, we are going to be doing a little bit of sort of fun stuff here in this episode that we've never tried before, so bear with us. We decided that it would be kind of fun to take on some character of Asha'man in the Black Tower later on in life and talk about the events that led up to the creation of the Black Tower and the actual events of the creation of the Black Tower. So I think we're going to give that a shot. And if you hate it, please let us know. And if you love it,
just
please
tell
let
us,
us know.
give us attention.
In fact, just let us know. We're desperate for company.
Here's where,
Please.
Okay, guys.
So lonely.
Imagine
It's like I'm about to be featured in like an old like World War II documentary.
That's exactly where I was going to go with this. Imagine one of the old 40s or 50s news reels, right? The news, the papers are like flipping by. You hear that sound, And then it's like, hello, my name is Clay McSkin, and I'm here live at the Black Tower where I will be interviewing some Asha'man. I will be bringing this live to you from my projection Tirangrial, and you, my friends, will get the inside scoop as we go where no other reporter has ever dared to go, inside the belly of the beast.
I still like the ones where, like, the old black and white films were just possible in shows.
December 7th, 1941. A date that will live in infamy, as our president has stated.
That's a good one, too. That's a good one, too. By the way,
Yeah,
also,
I ran out of words after that. So.
This is our audition reel, too. So, you know. Okay.
New Age Gleeman.
New Age Gleeman. So
Radio? What's that?
Stop.
Newfangled sensation sweeping the nation.
Daniel, you were one such person recruited from your village. Please, could you give us some insight as to what that was like on that fateful day?
Yeah, so I was just chilling around in my little town when these guys in black coats just showed up. There were 5 of them. They came into town like they owned the place, and they told us that do not be afraid. It was like one of those Bible voices where the angels come down and they're like, "Don't be afraid of us." And they said, "We are men who can channel," and all hell broke loose. Women were screaming, children were running, men were grabbing pitchforks. It was chaos. And
you mean they actually told you straight off they could channel?
They were very surreptitious about it right at the beginning. But at some point, one of them said, "We're here to test men who have the spark." And one of the women screamed because she thought she knew what that meant. And then it just went downhill from there.
That is absolutely amazing. Tell us how the men went through your village. How efficient were they? Could you see the breakings of madness?
To be completely honest, one of the things that drew me to these men were the fact that they would dress so nice. They looked so clean. They were so put together. Some of them had these pins on their coats that I later found out meant they had a certain rank as far as their position in the White Tower or in the Black Tower, and I wanted to be like them. I was 16 at the time. I had no idea what was really going on, and they one of them walked straight up to me, and I looked up into his face, and I saw no madness. I saw nothing. He was completely normal, except for the fact that he looked so powerful. So he asked me if I wanted to find out whether I could channel, and I said, yes. Please test me to see if I can channel.
Absolutely shocking. And you, Andrew, you are from a different village. Is your experience much the same?
Yes, in some ways it's very similar. Of course, there were some gentlemen that were wearing the black cloaks, if you would call it that, the black jackets with the fancy long bottoms, and one or two of them had the fancy sword pins on their collar. I don't know why my accent changed mid-thing.
I love it.
Pet on Fane confirmed! Pet on Fane confirmed!
Oh
no! Sorry, I had something stuck in my throat.
Daniel, is he taken with the taint?
Listen here, sonny boy. You haven't seen the things I've seen. We'll get to that soon enough.
Don't worry. If he's not taken by the madness, then that'll be the end of it. I won't look for you. But if he's taken with the madness, I will find you. I will put something in your wine, and I will kill you.
Always a chilling revelation. Never a dull moment in the Black Tower.
Yes, but
Now, Daniel, please tell us
Oh, we're
your
not done with
experience.
my story. Holy shit.
I'm sorry, Andrew. Tell us your experience.
Please,
So for mine.
Mr. Connery, finish your story.
Yes. There was about 3 men that showed up in the middle of the night, and, they became the talk of the town very quickly. Being dressed in fine clothing with these, fancy pens on their collar. It's very shocking. We had never really had too many strangers other than the traders. We do wonder what happened to that nice patent Fane fellow. Never saw him. About 3 years prior to this.
Am I to assume that your village is in the west of Andor?
Yes. It'd be a fair assumption. Have you heard of a little place called Barlon?
It is a small city, if I understand correctly.
Yes. So these men, they arrived in the middle of the night. Most strange. And they started asking teenagers, young men, even the old men. I was about 18 at the time. If we had ever experienced any sort of unexplained sickness, some kind of sudden onrush of fever and chills, just the inability to move. And of course I said yes. We were like, well, these must be government officials of some sort. And they rounded myself up, along with about 15 to 20 other men, boys, elders from the village, from the small city, as you say. And they said, well, we have this fancy new program. We're not going to discuss it here. It's far too dangerous. It's experimental. But we can help you. Your body is going to be dealing with some changes. And we have the tools here to help you. That's why they give us the fancy coat and the fancy pen. We've got a fantastic teacher named Mazrum Taim, who will be happy to help you figure out the changes that your bodies are going through and the things you've dealt with in your
Mazrim
past.
Taim. I imagine that some of the men screamed at that point, given that they knew who Mazrim Taim was.
Oh, yes, there were wild looks around, but as far as we knew, he wasn't much of a danger at the time. You see, at the time of this interaction, we had just found out that he had been captured by the Aes Sedai. So we figured that if he was free, this meant that he couldn't be much of a danger. Boy, were we wrong. But so, we left from there and started heading up towards Camelin. A very long, very arduous journey. Filled with many no's. And maybe only 1 or 2 yeses.
Now, Josh, I hear that you also had a run-in with the men from the Black Tower. Is that correct?
These men showed up in my village. I was 34. They came in asking for those who wished to serve the Dragon Reborn. There were 5 of them. I could see the steel in their eyes. I knew these were dangerous men. I knew that I had no choice. To sit and rot in my home and wait for Tarmangaden, or to join with the Lord Dragon. I can't say what it was that convinced me that these men were the genuine article and that the Lord Dragon was the genuine article. Something inside me pulled at me, and I knew I had to go with these men.
A chilling prospect. Thank you, Josh, for adding your story to those of the other 2 men. Now, if all of you could take a moment and tell us what happened next.
As we left the village, a bright sliver of light opened in the middle of the road. I had no idea what was happening. I thought I was going to be a conscript for the Lord Dragon and his army. as we crossed through this circle in the air, it was then that we were told that our true purpose was to be tested, to see if we would join the Lord Dragon himself. Fear gripped my throat. I was terrified at the prospect that I could be one who was a channeler. But I was also strangely excited at the prospect of sharing such a power with a man I believed in my soul to be the true Dragon Reborn. As we pulled up, there were about 15 of us in the back of the cart. We all piled out one at a time. The 5 gentlemen began testing us immediately. It was strange to see. At first, we could tell there was something happening. These men would light a flame out of thin air, and we would stare at it, and they told us to focus on the flame. As more and more people went, many of them just went to one side, and a couple of them went to the other side. As it was my turn, I looked into the flame. I could see it flicker. I could see the flame. I let everything else dissolve, and I saw nothing but the flame. Abruptly, the flame went out. It was as if I had fallen 6 inches from the ground and just stood there. It was so abrupt. The man smiled at me and said, "Welcome to the Black Tower." And that's what began my journey.
Now, Josh, it sounds like you were traveling to the Black Tower in a very different way than Andrew. Can you say, definitively, in what year you were brought to the Black Tower?
No.
Andrew, it sounds like you were one of the earlier people to be brought to the Black Tower before they were using what is now being known as gateways. Can you confirm that they were using gateways when they took you, or whether they were not yet using gateways?
So the majority of our travel was conducted via cart and horse. Though, excuse me, around about halfway there, there was a bright white light in the middle of the night. I had just started dozing off to sleep by the campfire on the ground. Another man in a black cloak wearing it looked to be a dragon and a sword on his collar appeared through some kind of window that, of course, later we would learn and be trained on was a gateway. And it wasn't long after this event that we were all roused from our sleeping pads, doused the fires, and were ushered through this gateway into what appeared to be just a regular farmland with very sparsely put together housings and dwellings. And, for the most part, things were quiet, but there were multitudes of other men standing around on the sidewalls, wearing, of course, these black cloaks, seemingly on guard. And most of the men just looked to be alert, but there was a couple of them that there was just something off, something shifty about them. Remember, there was one man that was walking around, and at the time, he was wearing the sword on his collar. And though he was standing guard at the gate that we came into, or the checkpoint, whatever you would like to call it, where there was one of these, as we would later find out, Asha'man standing. Asha'man, of course, being the broad term for these trained men. He looked very aloof. He didn't seem to notice much but definitely noticed when we approached. And I would later learn this man's name was Dashiva. Very interesting man. Very weird man. But of course, by this point, just as Josh had experienced, we
for no reason. Just for no reason.
But of course, once we found out the purpose of this compound that was being built and why we were there, of course, we just assumed that all the weird guys were just mad with the taint. Which at first I didn't quite understand the phrase. I was wondering what's going on with these men and their bungholes. But it was very quickly explained, and I very quickly understood what they meant when they said the sticky sweet taint. It's not a phrase I ever expected to ever hear, much less say myself in my lifetime. Very disturbing and very hard to get used to.
Andrew, could you tell us about your testing?
Yes. So, they wasted no time. This man stood watching everyone from the equivalent of about 4 or 5 crates put together like a makeshift podium stage of sorts. At first, we thought that perhaps she was local entertainment. That was quickly shown to not be the case, because nothing this man did was exactly entertaining, especially when you were the subject of his sadistic, stuff. So they had a line of about 3 or 4 men in these black cloaks, and we formed up in lines in front of them, and one by one we would walk up, and the whole time we're watching, we're seeing these flames, like Josh had mentioned, spring seemingly out of nowhere, in between the men that formed the line and us newcomers. And when I walked up to my tester, I don't remember his name. Thankfully, he did not seem too far taken with the taint at the time. He simply told me to stare at it and focus on it and nothing but it. I was like, okay, camping, staring in a fire, what's the big flaming deal? So, just sitting there staring at this thing, and suddenly it almost felt like, when 2 people are singing and they hit the same note, they sound like they're singing at the same pitch. It was much the same, but it was more of a feeling that you get kind of deep in your soul, not so much as something that you hear. And then for a brief moment, I could sense something like power or energy coming from this man across from me. And as quickly as it was there, it was gone. And it was so shocking. This is my first time experiencing anything like that. I actually kind of fell back. And then they pointed me off to the side and said, you're here, you're ours, you're going nowhere. Very alarming at the time, but quickly became just a staple of the attitudes here at the Black Tower.
Wow. 2 different accounts, but 2 same accounts as well. Daniel, please tell us your experience with these mystery-coated men who came to your village.
Well, now I am from a small village outside of Camelin, very near the royal city in Andor, and so I was apparently one of the first to be taken to the Black Tower for testing back when it was 4 buildings and no wall, no tower, no anything, and the Mazrim Taim was still doing the testing by himself, as he didn't trust anyone else to go ahead and do it with him. So I was brought before this this man who looked nothing like the monster that had been described to us as the false dragon who had torn Saldea apart. Hell, I didn't even know where Saldea was, but they would tell us these stories as if you don't behave and do your chores and eat your food, then the false dragon from the borderlands is going to get you. So I'm led up to this man who seems so normal, and he takes my hands and says, "Boy, you'll learn today whether you can channel or not." And I said nothing because I was so afraid. And just like the others, they formed between us a floating flame of power. And I focused on the flame until finally, after an eternity, it went out. And Taim looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Son, you are now part of the greatest group of men to ever roam the earth."
That sounds like the scariest part. Haim smiling at you from standing atop his stage. It was like something where you thought that at first perhaps you were being praised, but after just a few seconds, you could tell you were being sized up almost like a cow or a pig about to go to the slaughter. Very, very disconcerting.
I couldn't have said it better. Honestly, on one hand, I thought I was later on when I learned what it was. I thought I must have felt the taint for the first time that day, but I think it was just Taim's horrible, horrible smile.
It haunts my dreams to this day.
But I must say that while Taim scared me every day I was there, he did do some good work. As a carpenter's son from the village where I was, he instructed us to make more buildings and barracks and school rooms. I mean, not school like I was used to, but places where we could blow things up and practice shields and all of these different things to make ourselves more powerful in the one power inside Dean. And every day you would go to do chores, and you would go and you would do laundry, and you would go and blow up rocks, and you would put things together and take things apart, and it was always with Saidin, always. And Saidin.
Oh yes, I remember the first time I asked if I could see my family at any point, or send them letters or anything of the sort. And there was at this, by rank, a full Asha'man at the time. He wore the sword and the dragon pins on his collar. And at the question, he simply backhanded me without using his hand, but it felt like a hand, which of course we would learn was a weave of air across the face. He would say, boy, once you learn to travel, then you may go and see your family when we allow it.
So you're saying, Andrew, that they were abusive at the Black Tower? This is shocking. Shocking, I say.
Abusive is different now than it was, back then. The men to deal with Saidin, you had to be a hard man. You cannot afford to be soft. You cannot afford to risk any weakness when dealing with the turmoil and that just nasty, oily sickness that stood in between you and the sweetest elixir of life you've ever known.
So good.
So they had to do everything to make sure that you weren't going to cave under the pressure. They would tell us frequently, not so much Taim, but the other Asha'man, the other teachers, instructors would tell us, you've You've got to learn. You've got to get stronger. We've got to see how strong you can you can be. You've got to be of some use to us, some use to the dragon, or otherwise we've wasted our time on you, and we'd be better off simply getting rid of you. So the methods of punishment there and the level of discipline that we had to deal with was extraordinarily high, higher than my parents had ever done for me. And I once got whooped for sneaking honey cakes out of the the local the local inn, and even that was just a switch across my backside, which was nothing compared to the punishments should you be caught doing something you shouldn't. And even sometimes, if you just appeared to be slacking off, you got much, much worse. It was nothing to have a boulder or a rock or a stone of some size, easily as big as your fist, if not larger, explode right behind you. And the rationale being given, when you're in battle, you have to be focused, you have to be aware. And if you got caught off guard by one of these explosions, then it was your fault because you were not paying attention. You weren't focusing on the void and the surroundings around you and being aware and becoming the soldier, the tool of war, the guardian, as the great dragon Randall Thor would later call us. You weren't focusing as you should be, and that's why you now had shards of
rocks. A little bit of fire, a little bit of air, but to really make it boom, you add some water. And if you want the fire to spread, give it some spirit.
Yes, they also taught us the method of using water and air to when we started building the magnificent wall that still stands around the Black Tower itself now. Stones couldn't be made haphazardly. They had to be square. They had to be flat. They had to be perfect. And Taim and the other instructors, and in fact, your fellow Asha'man at whatever rank would not accept anything other than perfection. That's when we started learning how to use water and air flows to force cracks in the stone to shear them off. You never did anything other than walking without holding. Well, even then, you held the power while walking, but your chores were never done with your own hands. They were always done with the power. If you could not cook your meals or clean your clothes without using Saidin, well, then you simply had dirty clothes and you starved.
Saidin.
Unless you were lucky enough to be able to use gateways and travel substantially and bring, your family or, your wife or your girlfriend or whatever she wound up being to you to do those things for you. Otherwise, well, you were just, I believe in the current age, they would just say that you're fucked.
I have to say, that was one of the biggest changes that you needed to get quickly there in the Black Tower. Because, as Andrew said, everything was done with the power. If anyone ever saw you using your hands for anything, it was game over. As he so said, this age vernacular. But the crazy thing was that we grew so quickly. The first day I tried to touch Saidin, I could barely even wrestle it to do anything for me. But by a week in, I was already doing things that were unheard of by normal means. We were building things so quickly, so much faster than any of the men in the village council in my old village could have done. Thatching roofs and building walls and making beds and things like that. It was crazy to see the absolute magnitude of what the power could do. Not only just creating fire and blowing up rocks and drowning people in water. It was all creation as well, building buildings and making food and killing livestock and raising livestock. It was all of this. And by the time you were there for even a year, you would know how to do everything without even touching a single piece of furniture or materials or animals. you never used your hands for anything.
Well, maybe you did just once or twice, but you never did it consistent.
That is amazing. To see the growth of the Black Tower. Now we have some insight as to how it went from one farmhouse to a bustling village in such a short time. Thank you for joining us on this first installment of The Black Tower. The good, the black, and the ugly. Hey, you know what, you guys? I want to say congratulations on your backstories and your characters. That was, you know what?
That was fun as shit.
Bravo. My good sirs. Bravo, my good sirs. No, I think that's good, though. I mean, to get a little bit of an insight as to, just one of the things that makes the Wheel of Time so great is Robert Jordan was a master of writing from a person's perspective, right? When you read the story from Matt's point of view, you got the world of the Wheel of Time from Matt's point of view. Exactly.
The world according to Matrim Coffin.
I think it's really fun.
A whole lot of the fuck is this?
Bloody Aes Sedai.
Who the fuck are you? Are you the bloody daughter of the Nine Moons?
You look pretty good. Does Daughter of Nine Moons mean anything to you?
Does Daughter of the Nine Moons mean anything
No, but
to you?
I mean, I think it's kind of cool to have like a bit of a thought experiment of, no, for real. I'm a farmer, and one day these guys come into town and they're like, who wants to serve the Dragon Reborn? No, the actual real Dragon Reborn. And everybody's like, sure, I'll go. Fuck it, why not? And then they're like, haha, just kidding. We're going to test you to see if you can channel now. And it's like, shit. I have to wonder, like...
I mean, it's really interesting because, of course, like, Rand instructed Taim, and to what degree he followed these instructions is, of course...
I think in the beginning he
up in the air, up for
pretty
debate
good.
based off of the later conversations. Yeah, but it was all about you need to be discreet. Don't attract a whole bunch of attention, but go find these people that literally you just have to fucking Yahtzee it and hope that you get something that you can use. So you wind up with, let's say that, out of 20 people they would have brought back for testing, there might have only been 5 to 7 that actually had the spark and could pass Mazrim Taim's test. So there's going to be these people that are going to go back to their villages, to their towns, to cities, in fact, because obviously Mazrim Taim did a lot of recruiting from Camelin itself. And from a logistical standpoint, it made the most sense. You get a ton of people from a ton of different areas. It's a massively densely populated area. But there's also those pesky Aes Sedai that are there too.
And Taim
you introduce them early on to
Rand,
the elements.
and I don't know if this is spoilerific or not, but he even promises that he will be so aggressive in his recruiting and training that they will match the White Tower within the year. Like, it's a very...
Yep. I believe at the time, a fair number that he was shooting for was between 800 and 1,000.
Yeah, and when he made that promise, they had like 5.
Yeah, they had pretty much just started. It was pretty much Ram was like, he's loose hands on, fucking kill him, fucking slit his throat, do something, castrate him. Don't fucking stand there, you fucking moron.
Well, and Taim
and Rand's.
Go ahead.
Fine, I'll go. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I was just going to say, Taim even gave him a gift of one of the seals, and that triggered Rand like bad. He was like having another,
but it wasn't a trigger
seals.
Taim.
Seals,
and being that close to a seal on the Dark One's prison, like that combination just set Rand off. Like it was everything he could do to pull that back in and
break it,
rein that in.
Yeah, and of course it says that, I mean, Robert Jordan talks about the fact that was the biggest thing for Taim, or that feeling that Rand got when he was around Taim was the worst when he was around Taim, but that he literally felt like that around all of the Asha'man all the time.
Which is why
I mean, it started off as just Taim.
right.
And as we said, okay, making sure I'm not spoiling stuff.
Yes, indeed.
So as he was around Taim, and Rand's own madness increased, so too did the voice of Lews Therin, where it went from just kill Taim and just, this very cautious approach to the other male channelers to a kill them all. Which, given, the history that you'll learn about later with Lews Therin, it makes sense, and you can understand why. And it would even make sense from just it being Rand himself. But
yes.
What I was saying earlier about all these people is you're going to have all these people that see this testing going on, fail it, and go back to their towns and be like, yeah, so remember those guys in the kind of weird clothes that came out of nowhere, and then we just kind of disappeared, and I've really only been gone for 6 hours, and now I'm back. Yeah, so they're men that can channel, so we should probably pack our shit and get the fuck out of here, because I don't know how they got me from here to there, but it couldn't have been too far, so we need to totally GTFO right now.
Yeah, no,
so
honestly,
story, the thing is you can only be so discreet. People are going to talk. They're especially about that.
No, and to be fair, I think they actually technically talk about going out, and while it was way more fun to do this, at least a little bit, as far as characters going back to the Black Tower and doing whatever, I think it actually talks about in the book that they would test them out in the villages.
Yeah, well,
because at that point, most people, the teams that were going out, the scouts, had at least one person who could test people. So they were probably doing it there so that they didn't waste the effort of going, all right, cool. So you 20 people, we're going to take you, bring you back to the Black Tower, find out that 4 of you can channel, and then just bring the 16 of you back. It was more like they were testing them there. The only time that they actually kept the people who couldn't channel was when they went to Camelin voluntarily, went to the Black Tower, found out that they couldn't channel, and then went to Bashir for to be in the army.
I hate to do this to you. I'm about to correct you, but please don't take it personally. The plan was that Taim was to roll into town and ask for all those who wanted to follow the Lord Dragon. Now, he did this because he said to have an army of people who wanted to be there was better than conscripts, and I agree.
Yes.
Then what he did was he would say 20 people. Let's use your math of 20 people. He would bring them
How dare you use
to the Black Tower where he would test them. And the ones who could channel, the ones who had the spark or who could learn, stayed at the Black Tower. The ones who could not were escorted into Camelin so that they could join the army under, at the time, it was under Davin Bashir. So please know that I hold you in the highest of respects. But know that you're fucking wrong on that one.
No, it's fair. I honestly, actually rethinking about it, I do remember that passage, and they do talk about that there were both. That they would go to villages and find them, and then there were also the volunteers who would show up in Camelin voluntarily from wherever,
because they knew the Lord Dragon was there, and there was blah 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 blah.
And his amnesty had been announced and things like that. So men who thought they might be able to channel would just show up in Camelin and then be carted to the Black Tower to find out whether they could channel or not. But you're totally right that, again, to be as discreet as possible, they would go into town, say, hey, y'all want to serve the Lord Dragon? And people would be like, sure, that sounds great. And then they would test them to see if they could channel or not. But that they didn't really go home. They went to the army.
Yeah, that's fair. But and at the beginning...
But still, I mean...
And how people got there... In the beginning, I don't think Taim knew how to travel. Did
Yes.
Rand teach him that whenever he
Yeah,
first? when he
yeah.
was-
Pretty
So
much
Taim
immediately, yeah.
arrived at the palace where he, oh yeah, I'm Taim, I hear about your amnesty. And Rand has this idea. He's like, look, Taim did really great. He almost won. If he wouldn't have gotten captured, he would have been just fine. Then he escaped. So blah, blah, blah. So what he did was he wove a gateway right in front of Taim out to the farmhouse and was like,
Yes.
this is how it
Oh, that's
works.
right. And Taim picked up the
Yeah,
flows from
exactly.
that.
Rand was kind of showing off as well
Yeah.
because
Because
he
that's
wanted-
what book
Because I think that's part of what drives.
4 Rand
Taim-
does.
well, no,
I think it's part of what drives Taim to make the bold claim that he can match the white. He's like, I think he says something like,
Yes.
"With this, I can match the White
Right.
Tower's numbers within the."
so he
Yeah.
then in at least up to Lord of Chaos, Rand checks in on the Black Tower at least once, and he's surprised at the growth. He's like, "Holy crap, you guys are doing great!" And
it's gotten
he
so big.
Taim even
That's what
sort
she
of comes back to him with with a note of pride in his voice, right? Where he's like, "Yeah, little what's his buck? I can't remember who it was, but one of the guys that they had just recruited finally had his first hot meal. If they can't do it with the power, they can't do it. So
Mhm.
remember, like,
Was that Gedwin?
I can't remember. I can go back and look.
Or no. Never. No, yeah.
But
it
the
doesn't
the
matter.
idea here is that if you went to the Black Tower and just thinking about learning how to channel, it's like learning to ride a bike or learning to walk or learning to juggle or learning to code in a computer language of some type. You guys, you can't do anything until you can do it with the power. So you're literally, I
Yes.
mean, let's just take the bike thing for a moment. If you can't go anywhere until you can go there on your bike, you're literally sitting there with the bike in your hands, jumping on, falling off, jumping on, falling off, jumping on, falling off. Oh, by the way, if you're
I mean,
not
it's like the
here
old-
in 1
the old adage of
hour,
teaching someone
we're
to
going to
swim.
beat the crap out of you. And then tomorrow, we're going to do the same thing.
Well, it's like, a lot of like old school dads. It's the way my dad fucking taught me, the
Toss him
lovable
in the deep
asshole.
end.
Yeah, just fucking throw you in the fucking water. Mine was a fucking lake. You didn't know everything was the deep end. All right, because he took me out to the end of the pier. And he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna swim." I had my little floaties carrying with me, and then he fucking yanked them out my hand and fucking pushed me in the
My
water.
grandpa did that.
Yep.
I mean, now of course he stood there to make sure I didn't fucking drown because that's murder. But I mean, it was
he-
the
he
thing,
did
and that's how the
make
Black
you.
Tower was.
Isn't it his
Yeah.
right to go ahead and unmake you?
Late,
I don't think
really,
that's how that
really
works
late
technically.
term abortion.
Whoa.
These aren't
Really, really, really late term. Like really late term.
Woof.
R-
Isn't
mean, that's-
everything just a really, really late
Ladies
term
and gentlemen, we
abortion?
have solved the problem. There is no more murder. We have solved murder in the world. You're welcome.
I'm gonna tell people from now on. I'm never gonna die. I'm just gonna get a very late term abortion on myself.
My abortion
Oh.
my abortion was like 78 years after I was born, and it was very peaceful.
I mean, if you think about it, Mother Nature eventually aborts us all. So,
Truth.
but
Anyways,
so, like, it
that
was a
got
lot of the
dark.
same way in the tower. It was, it was literally like trial by fire.
Did
You
it get
sank or you
black?
swam?
Yes.
Probably.
Like the
Hey.
Black
Furniture.
Tower.
But-
In its walls,
Welcome
which gave
to
it
the
its
tower.
name.
We
If
got
you're
fun and
thinking
games.
about logistically, from a standpoint of logistically, nothing else. Okay, let's not talk about, all the people who went mad almost on day one, because I can't imagine that all of them managed to stave off the madness for years. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
Oh,
But
especially
Oh,
like
yeah.
the older.
so
I'd been touching Sidene unintentionally, or
Yeah.
maybe they even kind of knew what they were doing for the last
Yep.
like 2 or 3 days.
and so
Fucking Dammer Flynn
yes.
talks about that
Yes,
a
he
couple
does.
of times.
we
Mhm.
not
was also
only
the
yes,
first
he
test.
was. Not
Mhm.
only does Taim have the charge of
Yeah,
finding
she was,
and
yeah.
training men But he adds to that charge because, I mean, he's a smart person. He knows that he can't do this with a farmhouse. So he adds to that charge basically building a city. Now, this city is not power wrought in the sense that, you know, it's like a power wrought blade and will never be dulled or blah, blah, blah.
It's not
but it is
built.
power wrought in that the entire damn thing was built without hand tools, only using sardine.
Yep.
So now the real big thing is we did say we'd go up to Demise Wells, go up to and through Demise Wells. So the thing that you guys need to understand is that from inception or from conception of the Black Tower, when Taim shows up and meets with Rand for the first time and is escorted out to the farm, the very same meeting where he starts to test people, to Demise Wells is, I want to say, like 20 or 30 chapters in one book in Lord of Chaos. Okay. So from that small amount of time, Taim is able to almost make good on his promise because he is surprised at the large number of men who can channel that he's found. I think where I'm at in Lord of Chaos, he finds the first man who was born with the spark in him. And I just think it's really kind of cool that how aggressive they are. And Rand even questions him. He's like, wow, is that really necessary? And Taim looks at him and says, you said push them, so I push them. And it's just, I love that you go from the inception of a ragtag group of, I mean, Taim was angry when he saw the first group of misfits that he was to test and train. Like, he was like, this is a bunch of backwood farmer hillbilly nothings, and now I got to turn them into the weapons for the Lord Dragon. And I love the progress that he makes, because just in a couple of months he turns it from a small farmhouse into a very powerful, organized military force. I think when they said at Demise Wells there were, what, 300-ish? Full Asha'man.
Something like that. It's
there's several hundred
number.
fully trained, fully trained, quote, because whatever. But there's 100 fully
capable of doing what
Asha'man
needs to be done
that show up at Demise Wells.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's chapter 42 of Lord of Chaos, aptly titled Black Tower, when Rand goes back to visit and see how things are going.
Yes, and that's when he brings
after
the
stopping.
pins.
Yeah, because that's what I say. He does that after stopping by the jeweler, getting 2 different bags. Shows up, and then he's got the sword pin and the dragon pins for the collars. That's when the term Asha'man comes in. That's when he tells them, "This is what you're training for."
Correct.
It means guardian in the old tongue, and you're going to be the guardians of righteousness and justice. And that's when he learns that the men there that are being trained were kind of like, well, the women that do it are in the White Tower, so we'll just be the Black Tower.
Yeah, it's kind of like a misnomer at first, like a nickname.
Yeah.
Yes. And he just says, you know what, guys? Let's make that official.
Yeah.
Let's fucking roll with it. That's awesome.
Well, the thing is, I don't think it's ever officially coined.
No, in that meeting, he says, yeah, no, I like that. Do that. And so, like, again, as far as like official,
I thought he said something along the lines of, I don't really care so long as they're being trained and they're going to be of use. They can call it whatever they want. It's whatever he basically looks at Taim and is like, whatever you're fine with. I don't really care. So long as these men are being trained, they have somewhere to go, and they're less likely to go mad, so that they can be of important use later on. Because for the most part, Rand is, other than checking in and making sure that he tries to keep Taim in check, he doesn't really care how things are going at the Black Tower, as long as things are progressing. Because I know he's super shocked when he gets there, because now they have a barn, they've got animals and pens, trees have been cleared, there are buildings under construction. I believe at this point the wall is under light construction. And he's basically just there to lay out the lay of the land. Like, this is what's going on, and this is what you're going for. And to give you an incentive, here's a shiny silver pin that when you get promoted from, I just showed up here to actually have some training, you get this. And then once Taim says that, you can do pretty much everything, or you're really well trained, and you're sufficient for what we want the goal to be for combat use, you get the dragon. Because this is the same time he gives both to Taim, and Taim is like all pissed about it, like, get the shit off me, Dad.
Yeah.
Because of course that is the first and last. I'm gonna say I lost my train of thought there.
No, it's all good. So FYI, again, I love you. I am going to say that you are a little bit right. I'm actually just at the speech that he gives. And he does kind of say, what do you think about this name, the Black Tower? But he actually has a line specifically that says, just as the White Tower has ranks before a woman can become a full sister, the Black Tower will have ranks before a man can become a full Asha'man. So he does actually refer to it as the Black Tower, sort of officially naming that, even if it's sort of just to have a name to call it, because he didn't have one before. But he does say this. The Black Tower will have ranks. So
I mean, that's fair. I never looked at it as him officially saying, like, yeah, I like this name, let's make it the name. Just more of a, well, all the guys here call it this, so let me just call it this because that's what they're calling it. Yeah. I mean, but ultimately, I think that's the way a lot of things wind up getting their name anyway. It's sort of make up a name for a street or a name for a state or a name for this, and everybody's like, yep, sounds good.
No, exactly. And that's why, I think that he doesn't necessarily... You are absolutely correct that he's not as gung-ho about it in terms of like, oh, damn, the Black Tower, that sounds amazing. Let's go ahead and put that on.
That's a sick name, y'all.
But like, he also does kind of make it official in some ways by...
by him saying it, it does.
Yes, by him going ahead and actually also referring it.
But ultimately, he's like, I don't give 5 shits if you want to call it Camelin version 2. Like, call it whatever the fuck you want. I'll call it that. I don't give 3 shits so long as you are training the people, and when they go mad, you take care of them so I don't have to, because I don't want to be killing people. I've had enough of fucking killing people.
Right. Yeah. No, and it's also interesting to note, here relatively quickly, that Mazrim Taim goes ahead and takes a lot of liberties as far as what his mandate is and how to do it. And Rand is not happy about all of them, even though he's also happy about all of them. Because in the end, as far as, again, up through, Dumai's Wells, Mazrim Taim does not really make a bad call. No. Everything that he does forwards the White Tower, or the Black Tower, and makes it way stronger than Rand necessarily imagined that it would be right at the beginning. Yes. By going around a number of rules that Rand gave him in the first place. And when Rand finds out about those, he's like, dude, could you fucking not? But also, like,
good job.
This is really cool. Like, no, exactly.
Well, and that's,
you were a bad guy, but just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you
are a bad guy. No, I've been a Taim sympathizer from day one, because fact of the matter is without Mazrim Taim, you would not have the Black Tower represented at the last battle. Period. End of story. I'm sorry. I don't believe there's any other way that could have happened. Now, did he... Yeah. I'm going to leave it right there. But I love that Taim had...
There's a tough line between spoiler and not spoiler, and you're flirting with it.
Well, what I was going to say is that he had experience militarily being from Saldea that Rand never could have had. And they even talk about, when he meets with Rand for the first time, Bashir is like pissed, wants to kill him. Yeah. And Taim's like, yeah, I kicked your ass on the battlefield. How's it feel, great captain?
It's like, I think in recent memory, he's like, what, the second or third most successful false dragon?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's not the most, because the most led a siege all the way to Tar Valon.
Right.
Yes.
But, and that's
and so that was like Rowland Darksbane or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that actually was his name.
Yeah. And
well, sorry, that is a name of a false dragon. I don't remember if he's the one who did it, but I'm pretty sure it was Rowland.
Right. Yeah. And what I love about his role in founding the Black Tower is that you're absolutely right. He kind of looks at Rand and goes, "Oh, yeah, okay, sure, let's do that. Yeah, hey, bye-bye." And I think
it's kind of
he played it very close to the chest, played it very safe, and played very specific to the rules. But once he realized that Rand was too busy to check in on them regularly, like I think he even comes to Rand a couple of times and is like, "You really need to come out here and see the progress." And then when Rand just was like, "Yeah, dude, I'm too busy for your ass. I told you to do that." He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna fucking do it. But if you ask me to do it and you're not gonna oversee anything, I'm gonna do it my way." And that's how it's gonna be. And that's kind of where you get the split, I think, is you have Taim kind of going, "Okay, listen here, dude, you told me to do a job. I'm trying to do the job the way you want me to do it, but you're not even like there enough to verify that I'm doing it the way you said you want me to do it. So guess what? I'm gonna do it my way." And then it's like every time Rand shows up to check in on him, he kind of shits on him. It's like, "Dude, what are you doing? You suck at this. Hey, good job though. I'm gonna peace out to Carrion, and we're gonna kill some bad guys. So see you later. Bye." It's just like, oh, okay, what's up?
Yeah, Andrew? I mean, it's kind of one of those like, what do you expect him to do? Because Rand literally does that. He's like, "Oh, you're that false dragon that I've heard about, and you just gave me this fucking seal, and I need to do this thing. So I'm just going to use you to do it. Here's where I want you to do it. Here's some broad conditions, like don't be conspicuous. Avoid Camelin because there's a bunch of Aes Sedai. Like, be discreet and shit about it." And when he does go back for his first visit to what is now the Black Tower in Chapter 42, before he leaves, he's on his way out, and Taim can tell that Rand is already succumbing to madness.
Right.
Because he literally looks at him and he's like, "Hey, hang on to your sanity." But for Taim, that's okay, the dude's already fucking losing it. So he's not going to be able to make the best calls on what should and shouldn't be done. So you're going to have Taim Fury. She's, I can understand that. Imagine getting a super prestigious award from somebody, pick the best award or medal you ever got while you were in service, Josh. And Daniel, I guess the equivalent would be like, something that you like a recognition for something you did at work, or something like that. Picture like the best award you've ever gotten, and it's given to you by somebody that hasn't even had any of the slightest correspondence to find out what you've even been doing or the effort you went through to get it. And it's just like, "Oh well, hey, here's this fancy nice thing," and it's just kind of like, "Okay, yeah, that's cool, but you don't even know what the fuck I've done." And you're sitting here patting me on the back saying, "Good job." And you obviously don't care.
So basically every medal I received in the Air Force.
Yeah, that's fair point. Yeah. My achievement medal I literally got for doing my job.
Guys, sex is cool, but have you ever gotten a dragon pin? Like, come on.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Oh, gentlemen.
And it's not really spoiler because we see it in the final chapter of Lord of Chaos. In Demise Wells, whenever Taim shows up, he's not wearing the pin.
Right.
Yeah.
He's already said, I literally guarantee, as soon as Rand was through his gateway and gone, the pins were off. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if Taim didn't just fucking throw them on the ground.
Yeah.
Or, fucking just let them melt in his hand or do something like that. To just, kind of show okay, yeah, this is fine for you plebeians, but
it's true.
Whatever rank he's going to give me, I'm already stronger than. So, and by wearing that, in his mind, it would put other people on the same level as him.
Yeah.
Which in his mind, as a military leader, that can't happen. I have to stay on a level above everyone else.
Yeah, Indeed. That's why he came up with Mahil, so that he could be like, yes, I am above the rank structure, which,
yes,
this is another one of those scenarios that I have to kind of say I agree with, because they're, and I say this very cautiously and very delicately. In any organization, there needs to be well-defined roles. Okay, if you don't have well-defined roles, then what you end up usually having is a mass of people who don't really know where to put their talents to use. Okay. And so you get a lot of people. One of the most funny example of this, and this is kind of an extreme, like flash in the pan kind of an example. I was one of the things I did in the Air Force was I was a CPR instructor. And one of the things they tell you to do is when you are assessing the situation, you're trying to tell someone to call 911, you grab someone, gain their attention, give them eye contact, and specify, I need you to call 911, right? Because what happens if you go, somebody call 911, everybody in the crowd goes,
because everybody thinks that somebody else is going to do it.
Exactly.
And then nobody
or
does
they
it.
panic and they say, oh, somebody has to call 911. But what that is, and I would point this out to people in the class, and I would say, look, without understanding the roles that these people need to take in order to save this person's life, this person could die. And one person was like, oh yeah, it's really good to know that you should be the one calling 911. I'm like, yeah, but what about the person performing CPR? They need to be the leader and they need to control the situation. There has to be someone who can see the picture and look at this for. So even again, when we start talking about, Taim adopting the title of Mahil and adopting the different Mahils and having different, battle, squads,
battle leader, leader, and
these are, again, these are one of those things where, yes, he did what Rand told him to do. We're going to have ranks. We're going to have soldiers, and we're going to have Asha'man. But I think he did a good thing, still kind of skirting around Rand's issues, but understanding how organizations work and how to lead an organization. He understood that different roles need to be, solidified and identified. And I really love that addition to the rank structure in the Black Tower.
Well, and springboarding off of that, I think that this goes really into a nice tie-in to sort of, the end of this episode here, and also something I was thinking about earlier, which is Taim is a questionable character on many levels, even up to the point where we're talking about Rand is very, very unsure about Taim for so many reasons. And, in the end, whatever your feelings are on Taim, I think it would actually be really interesting in a lot of ways to sort of get, we're not going to, and I think it's fine that we're not, but it is sort of a great thought experiment to think about what the wheel of time would be from all of the events up until this point in Mazrim Taim's thoughts. What did he actually think about all of this stuff that was happening in the Black Tower and whatnot, which is something that we see so little of. Because again, Rand goes to the Black Tower to set it up and then goes to the Black Tower again to give the pins, and then gets saved by all of the Asha'man that have been created or taught or trained or whatever you want to call it at Dumai's Wells, where suddenly Mazrim Taim is standing there outside of the rank structure and being able to, with the snap of his fingers and a single command, make sure that the Asha'man do exactly what he asks them to do.
Yes.
There is no hesitation. There is no one kind of sitting there being like, why are we listening to, Taim, since he's just the same rank we are?
Exactly.
There is no hesitation. There is no difference. He is the person giving orders. And the only person that they even maybe for a second think about listening to more than Taim is Rand, and only barely.
That's the thing, though, is Taim understands from being a military leader that the battlefield and battlefield training are not the times to sit there and have debates and question who's calling the shot.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't, unless it's going to obviously cause serious problems, you listen to whoever outranks you. Of course, the Dragon Reborn outranks the Mahiel.
Yes.
And of course, the Mahiel outranks the Asha'man and and further on below. I mean, he creates titles for people to lead different tactics and sections of the Black Tower. Much like we see with Josh's Twitter handle, Sorvan Mahiel, and then the one that I have on Discord that
Bijan Mahiel.
Bijan Mahiel. So, which I think one's battle leader and one's
Sorvan is
leader,
storm
correct?
in the old tongue,
and Bijan is
which
battle.
And the Sorvan Mahiel is over the Bijan Mahiel, or the storm leader is over the battle leader. And of course, the storm leader answers Taim, and then in a theoretical world where Rand is there, Taim answers to Rand. But it's amazing to see, like you're leading into, obviously, with the final chapter of Lord of Chaos in Dumai's Wells. It's not only does Rand get to see the fruits of the assignment that he's given to Taim. Taim gets to see real world live action fruits of all the effort he's put into training these guys, and we as the readers get to really see how in such an incredibly short time. I mean, we're literally talking from chapter 42 to chapter 55.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally what?
Yeah, and I
chapters?
think in world, I think that's like a month and a half.
It's not a long time.
It's like a month and a half from where Taim starts his mandate, and then they show up in Dumai's Wells. It's like a week, maybe two, between when Rand gives the pins to Taim and then they show up in Dumai's Wells. It's such a short amount of time, and you really don't necessarily think about it as such, but it's amazing how impressively militaristic Taim has made these men, and how well they follow orders.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and
to put
how
it in
strong
perspective,
they are.
During the American Revolution, Washington's armies at the start of the war were literally fighting in not even actual guerrilla tactics. It was a bunch of people, ragged lines, not even full lines, shooting at the other guy, and as soon as something started looking bad, they would flee. And then you have a winter where this French guy, I believe,
Lafayette.
Lafayette. He comes in and writes the Blue Book for the American Revolutionary Military, and spends the months of winter putting them through drills and training. And when they come out of winter, it's a complete 180 turnaround fighting force. And Taim does the same thing, arguably in a matter of weeks.
Yes.
Something potential. And that's assuming that whenever Rand visits the first time, these people aren't already being trained in this manner, which I guarantee they were. So not all of them, of course, are going to be this turnaround in a matter of weeks, but literally comes through with, I can't remember how many Asha'man it was.
It was somewhere between 200 and 300.
300.
I don't remember exactly how many.
I think it's 200. I think. I'm not entirely sure. Give me 1 second, and I can tell you.
It's
200 Asha'man.
There you go.
That come pouring out of this gateway when, of course, all hope is lost. Everybody's going to die. And even when they start showing up, Perrin's like, I'm still going to die.
Right.
Oh. And they literally come out of nowhere and start blasting people away and create a safe area. That's like military tactic 101. Secure your LZ.
Yep.
So that you can bring people in, people can keep coming in safely. And then once they've got Rand there, Rand's like, show him a lesson. And Taim starts, he gives one command.
So anyway, I start blasting.
No, he literally gives one command, and these Asha'man, without thinking, without really having to be coaxed or anything, just immediately
no hesitation.
And then commands them to raise the dome, and then we get the infamous
Asha'man
kill.
Asha'man!
The meat grinder start.
Yeah.
And, and they're more than just trained. They're more than just organized. They're incredibly effective.
Yeah.
Where we get, like, or not, I don't even think it's an argument. The most gruesome depiction of a battle scene you get throughout the entire series. And I mean, to the point where people are literally having to beg Rand to make it stop because it's like, hey, you see, the IL that never run away, that fight to the last man, that this is super dishonorable, even if they're Shido.
Right?
They're all fucking running away. And some of your friends are still out there. Can you fucking stop?
How about no?
Could you not
Asha'man do what I need them to do?
How about
no?
And then even in the midst of battle, Taim never once stops to look at Rand and say, "No, we should do it this way. No, we should do that." Taim is like, "Yep, let's do it." Even after the battle's done, where Rand's like, "You're either going to swell filthy to me or bad things are going to happen."
Yeah,
and they're all like, "What?" And he's like, "You will kneel to me." And
kneel
like,
or
what?
be
And then Taim, and then we get Taim coming in with that baller of a fucking line: "Kneel or you will be knelt." And all the Aes Sedai collectively shit their bloomers.
Their shits.
And fucking
it's
yep.
I mean,
it really and when you think about it too,
it really is.
Just to add on to what you were saying, the Aiel are running scared shitless. The Asha'man, who 2 months ago were farmers and farriers and traders and blacksmiths and blah, 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 who were tradesmen basically, are now standing with Saidin coursing through their beings, destroying the most feared army on the planet at the time, and literally outnumbered like 1,000 to 1, or I'm sorry, more like 100 to 1, coming out victorious. And some of them, I think it says some of them like empty their stomachs, but they all get back up, and guess what? They go back to the tower and they continue their training. These guys are, they're scary guys.
They are. No, and it's great.
For me, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that it's a amazing scene, and I know that we've talked about this scene so many times, and I'm excited as fuck to see it on screen.
Hashtag ectoplasm.
Again, we have not necessarily set this up to keep doing it, but I am gonna keep throwing in things. The movie quote for this week, for Arcanus to get, seeing as how he got the last one and continues to get most of them. In honor of the references that we made to the American Revolution, we're going to say, remember, aim small, miss small.
Ooh, good one. Good one.
There you go.
So
there's your...
For the soft that wound up coming to the Black Tower, since we are talking about life at the Black Tower.
Indeed.
For the soft, the ones that aren't able to withstand the training, to quote one of my favorite all-time historical writers and political theorist, life was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know, that's a quote from Thomas Hobbes. Believe from Leviathan.
No, it's good.
Hobbes.
Yeah. Which, if you have not read Leviathan, you should. You should.
It's a good book. But there is our as spoiler free as we can make Life at the Black Tower episode. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Depending on what the feedback is on that and our general mood for any given day, we very well may add some more character into the podcast now that we know that we are capable and it's fun. But if you guys hated it, please let us know so that we never do it again. If you guys loved it, let us know so that we can do it more often. Speaking of letting us know, hey Josh, if the people want to contact us, how would they go ahead and contact us?
Because we have numerous means to we make ourselves very available to our fan base.
That's a great thing.
I was getting there. God, you just took the wind out of my sails. Light You flaming
shit, my bad. I'll edit it
goat-brained
out.
idiot. No, you can reach us at Black Tower Pod.
Get it right. I'm a light spirit.
Language.
Whoa.
You can reach us at blacktowerpod@gmail.com if you'd like to email us. If you are in the Twitterverse and you have a Twitter terangreal, you may send us a message at Tower Podcast. Is it Tower Podcast or is it just Tower Pod? Tower Podcast.
Yes, Tower Podcast.
Okay? You can send us a DM if you want. You know why? Because we're cool like that. If you like the show and if you think, just slide right into the DM.
Slide right in, guys.
If you want to follow us
Slide
on
right
Instagram, say you're one of those folks that just has Instagram, you can get us up on the Instagrams. If you would like to see more of us, if you like the show and you want us to do more and you're thinking, blimey, I'd like to do more to support these fine gents. Andrew, what would they do?
So, what you're gonna want to do, all right? You're gonna open up one of them their fancy the internet browsers. You're gonna type in blacktowerpod.podbean.com. Now, yes, that is our hosting site, and not what we were getting at, but it's one of the easiest ways to get to what we're talking about.
True.
Because in both the episode descriptions, and on the left-hand side, right underneath the follow button for us on Podbean, if you're looking at it on the computer, is a thing called links. And within those links, the thing called Patreon. Or you can just go to patreon.com/blacktowerpod. Whichever way works best for you. But you can go there. You can help support us with the cost of maintaining the show and the podcast, and potentially eventually getting us all three out to different conventions and maybe some meetups and stuff in the future, for us to be able to physically and face to face and insert other phrases for person to person interaction with you guys. Now, if you want to see more of the Black Tower, but you don't want to have a monthly subscription, which you could cancel at any time, just so you guys are aware if you don't know how Patreon works.
Hey.
There's also a link to our merch store, which we are working on adding designs to, where you can get a whole bunch of fancy, swanky stuff with the Black Tower Podcast logo that you guys see every time you listen to the podcast on it. We talked about it a lot more last episode. I'm not going to spoil anything on the shop for those of you that haven't looked at it or didn't listen last episode or didn't hear that part. And you can just go and enjoy and look at all the different products that you can get and customize yourself.
It's fun.
You can get that link as well, of course, on Podbean. I would say search on spreadshirt.com for Black Tower Podcast, but to be frank, the last time I did it, I couldn't find it. So,
well, there you go. Probably go through the links then.
If you're going through a website, just go through the hosting site. It's in the link section on the left, and we also put a link to it in the show description.
Yes. And last, there is actually another way that you can help if you're interested, but you don't necessarily have, money to throw at stuff on Spreadshirt or at Patreon. We are actually looking for sponsors. We actually have a couple of things out and about currently that are actually very, very exciting in various and sundry different ways. But if any of you have the hookup to anywhere that you think might actually be interested in helping sponsor our little podcast, we would absolutely love to hear it. Personal recommendations and things like that for what you'd be excited to hear about are always the most welcome. So if you have any inside scoop on stuff like that, we'd love to hear from you. If not, that is also totally fine. Again, let us be very clear. You listening to this podcast is enough. Absolutely, without a doubt, our fans are enough. We would like to do a number of these other things, but at the end of the day, you guys are awesome, and you don't need to do anything additional to be awesome. Now, if you'd like to, fantastic. We'd love it. If not, we absolutely love that you are here, that you are listening, and that hopefully you are enjoying. And again, we do this for you, and we're excited for you guys.
Yeah. Now, before we start or before we finish off by saying our goodbyes, some major, major fantastic news for the Twitter of Time, Wheel of Time community. That being a massive, massive shout out and congratulations to everybody's favorite Wheel of Time YouTuber,
awesome.
Daniel Green.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen it on Twitter, he has received his silver play button, the first milestone on YouTube for reaching 100,000 subscribers. I know.
Yeah.
I know we said congratulations on Twitter, but we also wanted to say congratulations here. You do some fantastic work, and we're really happy to have seen your channel go from just a couple hundred subscribers to now a couple 100,000 subscribers. Because you're gonna grow, and we look forward to seeing the Twitter announcement when you get that gold play button and moving on up to diamond, platinum, Dar, whatever it winds up being.
Moving on up on the YouTube.
We'll get a Gwen to make a special play button for you somehow.
I like it. Awesome.
But yeah,
yes, congratulations to everyone in the Twitter of Time universe, especially Daniel B. Green. We also know that there are a number of other YouTubers that are fantastic, and we will be glad to go ahead and congratulate you and be happy with you when you also hit those numbers. And hopefully at some point we'll get to those numbers. We'll see.
We'll see.
Not terribly worried.
Guys.
We'll see. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in on the Tirangrial of Timeless Intonations. I have been Josh.
I have been Daniel.
And I blinked for a moment, but I am Andrew.
Awesome,
Good night,
guys.
everybody.
Take care.